Hey everybody, Barry Greene here from Barry Greene Video Lessons, doing a live stream on YouTube. I'm giving that a shot because I've done it before, but I've gotten some new things since then and upgraded my internet. And anyway, I can also do this in 1080p, which is the most important part for me. Anyway, if you guys could hear, I'm going to try to play some Origin today. Hey George, how's it going, man? I'm going to type in, see how this is working. Let's see. Okay, so that works, cool. Anyway, like I said, I'm going to try this because I can record this in 1080p, and then I'll transfer it over to YouTube and Facebook another time. Hey James, that was really nice of you. Thanks, man. That was really cool. I didn't even know how that happened. Well, there's another great reason to be on YouTube. That was really nice of you, and I'm glad you enjoyed that Greene. That was fun for me to do, by the way. I really enjoyed that. That was a new tune for me, and I really loved learning it. Anyway, I'll sit here and chat with you guys. I'm gonna noodle a little bit, wait for some more people to get here, and then I'm gonna try playing Origin, which I think I'm gonna do as my next lesson. I had some requests for that on the forum on my website, so I think I'm gonna do that next. It's a tricky hit to play. Just trying to find like the ultimate good spot to play it. Sorry. So that's that just little chromatic thing in the beginning. It's pretty tricky. So Corn Kit is saying, for someone who has no background in theory, where should one start? The first thing I would say, and I give this advice to everybody, is just make sure you start listening. Listen to people, to jazz guitar players, Wes Montgomery, Grant Green, Benson, Martino, Joe Pass. Those are my favorites. They might not necessarily be yours, but anyway, do that, and you can get a basic theory book anywhere. There's so much stuff online. Theory is theory, and it hasn't changed in hundreds of years. So that part really you shouldn't concern yourself. The first thing I would do is just listen and try to copy a solo note for note off of a recording and just start playing along with it. I think that's much more important than trying to get your theory together, because that's not the answer to learning how to play this music. So that's the short answer of that. George Cole, is your phone recording too? No, the phone allows me to operate the camera. That's a couple of courses of Aerojet. I'm going to comp some changes into Ableton Live in a minute. I just wanted to get some people here. John Browning, it's an interesting question. How much of jazz is truly improvised versus improvising with short melodies? It really depends on the player. There are some players that, utilize a lot of memorized patterns and lines and things like that. And there are some players that are completely anti that and try to be 100% creative on every single solo. For me, I try to strike a balance of things that I have worked on and spent hours and hours and hours on versus the melodic stuff. And usually the stuff that I play that I've memorized and have just worked on is stuff that's technically pretty challenging too, because it's very, very difficult to play technical passages while truly, truly improvising. But it really depends on the player. But my guess would be, if I were to give you a percentage thing, it's probably somewhere, my guess, like 60% truly improvised melodies, as you're saying, and then 40%. I'm just throwing that out there. I might get some flack from that too. I don't know. But anyway. Any tips on right hand picking? Good question too. Just to be relaxed. Don't practice fast. For me, up and down picking works. Really, really well, and I don't change it depending on which way I'm going, what strings I'm playing, anything like that. It's just I get this very relaxed kind of just up and down pattern or down and up pattern that works really, really well. But when I was practicing technique a lot, I just practiced with a metronome really, really slowly. Just striving for perfect technique, meaning no mistakes, and then it's just a matter of putting in lots of hours, and the speed comes afterwards. I have a fellow professor over at UNF who's got a great saying for that, which is that speed is a byproduct of good technique. It's not the ultimate goal when practicing. Jim, hey Barry, could you talk a bit about playing over modal tunes and how to create movement? For example, the A part of Caravan. I just did an entire lesson. It's almost an hour long on Caravan. I put it up on the website yesterday. So, you can certainly get a truckload of information from that. I mean, it would that question alone would take over this entire little mini masterclass I'm doing here. But essentially, just in general, when you're dealing with modal harmony, in a lot of cases, you have a tremendous amount of freedom. Even if I took something that, let's say it wasn't Caravan, like even just So What, Miles Davis tune, like that D minor chord, you can, of course, play D minor, D Dorian would be the expected sound. Of course. But you can just try things like, here's a quick little tidbit. You mentioned the pentatonics, or somebody did mention pentatonics. No, somebody else. Anyway, try playing your minor pentatonic scales from the ninth of the minor chord. So that's D minor. Play E minor pentatonic. Sounds amazing. But a lot of us, what we do is we just start superimposing other harmony over that D minor chord. One other thing I'll throw out there that I like to use a lot is minor thirds. It's a great interval for playing outside. So in other words, I might be playing on D minor. And then a minor third from that is F minor, and a minor third from that is A flat minor. So I might dip into any of those particular sounds. Like here's D minor going into A flat minor. So all I did was dip into A flat minor a little bit. There's a couple of ideas as far as like just dealing with modal harmony, but it's huge. The question you're asking, like I said, would totally take over the entire time I'm spending with you guys. Brewitt, thank you very much. I do appreciate that a lot. Yeah. Thank you, George. That lesson that just came out, I mean, I really think that's one of the better ones I've done to date. Really happy with that. How do you think about use the augmented scale? It's another one that I happen to have a little. Thank you for these questions because I get to push my video lesson website. But I have a lesson on that too. I mean, it just depends. You know, the augmented triad, which is what the augmented scale is based on. Here's an augmented triad. The scale is made the same way a diminished scale is. You just approach every tone of your chord or triad by a half step. So it's a hexatonic scale, 6 notes. But when you start digging deep into harmony, you realize that, just like in the diminished scale, there's so much stuff that's hidden in there. So with the augmented, for instance, you have major triads built off each step of that augmented triad. So that would be F, A, and D flat. And there's a lot of patterns based on that. You know, so I've worked a lot on, just working on that particular sound a lot. But as far as the usage, it's the same kind of a thing where, actually, I shouldn't say the same kind of thing. I really haven't even mentioned this, but, you have an augmented triad. There are so many chords that have augmented triads in them. Like if I took D minor, for instance, the other example, and I made a D minor major, it's my augmented triad. So I can get it to work on that chord. But this grouping of notes also is G Lydian, 13 sharp 11, dominant chord. There is augmented in there too. So any chord form that you have that has an augmented triad, which I'm telling you are a lot of them, you can. But like any of these symmetrical scales, like the diminished, augmented, whole tone, you can get away with playing them over anything because that pattern takes over the harmony. I mean, once you hear this, it doesn't matter what you're playing over, that's going to just completely rise above all of it. So it's another huge question, but I do have a really good lesson on that one too, which is called the augmented scale. Same thing, same answer to the whole tone question. Thoughts on Gypsy jazz? I love it. I mean, I don't stylistically have it together at all, but I'm a huge fan, and some of these players are just absolutely astoundingly good. Hey Daniel, how's it going? Good to see you. Daniel, if you guys haven't checked out Daniel Corzo, he's a really great guitar player. I believe he's in Argentina. Just great playing. Charles, thank you very much. It's super nice of you. Can you explain the path to becoming a great improviser? Yeah, I think I can, man. I really do think I can. Very simply, first thing is you have to have a love for the music, and a passion and a desire to do it. And the simple steps, I mean, obviously all these take a lot of work, but the first step is to listen as much as you possibly can. And the second thing is to start lifting solos off of recordings. Some people will argue this with me, but I'm a firm believer in the whole mentoring method, meaning that you focus on somebody that you really admire and just learn. Just copy. And you guys have probably heard that classic quote by Pablo Picasso, the great artist, who said, good artists copy, great artists steal. What he's trying to say is that if you do this in the right way, people are not going to recognize it from getting it from somewhere else. I think I'm as guilty as anybody of that, meaning that I don't think I'm a great copier. I think you know exactly where I'm coming from. But man, everything that you need to know is in the recordings. Of course, you're going to practice your scales and your chord voicings and all that stuff is so mathematical and finite, everybody's going to give you the same information when it comes to that. I don't know any new ways of teaching you a drop 2 voicing. It is what it is. But I think what people miss out on is what I just mentioned, is they spend so much time, doing scales and chords and the theory and everything else, that they lose sight of the ultimate way to get this together, which is just to mimic the masters. And as you get it together and you develop your time feel and your sound and your sense of composition, then you'll see, oh yeah, they used harmonic minor there, or there's the augmented scale, or whatever it may be. But it's more of a tool, for me, a tool for an analysis and study, versus going to a gig and thinking, okay, when I see a G7 chord, I'm going to play Mixolydian. It's not that. So that would be the suggested path from me. Do you use diminished on the? I can't really read that. Do you diminish on the 2 minor chord? I think you were saying. No, I do not. Hey Drew, thanks, man, for all those nice comments on the forum page on my website. I really do appreciate that. I actually used one on a email that I just sent out, so thank you. Let's see. I'm reading Antar Blue. Speaking of augmented, the young moderns, Kreisberg, Rosenwinkel, Moreno seem to be in addition to echo effects, sparring fifths and raised fifths. If you're talking about the intervals of fifths, yeah, I mean, honestly, you guys who know me. I come from a whole different generation. I'm almost 57 years old, and the only guys that were available back then were, Joe Pass, Wes, Pat Martino, Benson, Tal Farlow, Jimmy Rainey. Those guys really weren't dealing with any of that kind of modern stuff. So I have toyed with it, and I've been working on for a long time. Things like that, which is just all fifths. But the thing is, those kind of intervallic playing you can utilize anywhere, because it doesn't really dictate any kind of harmony. But I'm not the guy to ask about that. I'm much more of a traditionalist with, the modern playing that I have together is more along the lines of, reharmonization, a la people like, Bill Evans, Herbie Hancock, things like that. I'm drawing from that kind of influence versus the newer guitar players who are doing a lot of really interesting intervallic thing. And every one of those guys you mentioned, absolute genius guitar players. And a couple of them I actually know. Mike Moreno, man, I think is one of the most underrated guitar players out there. Varg, thanks very much for that. I'm glad you're working on Minor League. That's a good tune. Okay, I'm doing really good, you guys. So let's play some music. Think of some more questions. I'll just gonna play it just to break things up a little bit. But I was thinking on doing Origin as the next video lesson. Just if I could just get that that turn there. But I'm gonna put the chords down in Ableton Live right now, and hopefully this will go okay. So I think everything is set up. So here we go. Sorry. Okay, so that was Aerogen. Like I said, I think I'm going to do that next. I've got, I'm sure a lot of you guys know I teach been at UNF, the University of North Florida. This is my 24th year. So I've been at it for a while, but I'm on summer break now, which is why I've been able to get a lot of lessons done. Those of you guys who are on the website know that I think I have knocked out 3 or 4 lessons, like maybe a week at a time. So anyway, it's been nice being on vacation. Let's see. Rafa, I think I said hi. Trying to get the bebop sound of my playing, but I seem to miss the right spot. You know, again, look sick. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Man, just start with learning these recordings and stop worrying so much about right spots and all those kind of things. Just get in there and play along with these recordings as much as you possibly can. The other thing too I didn't mention is play with people too, you guys. Pat Metheny has a great quote where he says, play with people that are better than you as much as you possibly can, because that's when you really, really learn. And, you know, I think it's amazingly great advice. Let's see. Thank you, Daniel, about the comping. I appreciate that a lot. Do you try SMIA 9000? I don't know. I don't play 7th string. I think it's amazing. I have a lot of friends who do. It's just something that I've not been interested in, just to be quite honest with you. But I do think it's a wonderful sound. And like I said, I have a lot of friends who do play it. Barry, have you ever noticed the big influence of jazz and Latin music? Yeah, Rafa, I appreciate that. Man, I'm one of those gringos, you know? I just play like whatever, the most common Latin tunes are. So, yeah, it's an area that I haven't put enough time into, so thanks. I discovered the other day to play melodic ideas from the chord grips that I use on multi-chord. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Pinocchio is an amazing tune. I believe that's Miles. Yeah, I think that's a great way to go about it. Hi Barry, you still teaching private via Skype? I do. So if you're interested, just go to, you could message me here or go to my webpage. I've got a special link just for that at barrygreene.com. Let's see. Specifically looking for advice on technique. Yeah, it's like somebody had asked that already. It's just a matter, I know it seems counterintuitive, but practice slowly and methodically, man. Scales. Even as I got faster and faster, my right hand felt just as relaxed as the slower tempo, and that's the whole thing. You need to be able to practice very, very, very relaxed. Once you start feeling tension, in my personal experience, it's never a good thing. And if people are telling you to play through it, I wouldn't take that advice. Just play at a really relaxed tempo, because all you're trying to do is establish a very, very strong foundation physically. Your body. It is, when you're talking about playing, at fast tempos, it requires a lot, man. Obviously we're just holding a little tiny guitar pick and everything, but the motor skill that's demanded of you is really, really hard. And unless you have those fundamentals in place, there's no way you're going to churn out those kind of tempos. So when I was practicing a lot, when I was younger, that's exactly what I did, just scales. sometimes I had this one that I thought was a really great idea. I got from a book called, this is one of those things that would be very hard to say 3 times fast. Sal Salvador's Single String Studies. He must have done that as a joke. Sal Salvador's Single String Studies. I can't even say it once. But he had this thing where he would just take a major scale, for instance, this B flat major. And he would just play it and add a note to it each time. It's a lot easier for me to demonstrate than to talk about. So you keep on adding a note to the scale. What this allows for is, first of all, you're playing the scale for a much longer time than just playing it up and down and taking a break. I think one of the things that really helped me out a lot was the idea of duration. What's the word for that? I know you guys know what I'm talking about. Stamina. Having good stamina. And you can't build that just by playing a scale up and down once and then starting all over again. So when you get to the top of the scale, you do the same thing in reverse. So just keep on adding a note in the other direction too, which is really, really helpful. But it's slow and steady, man. Slow and steady. Tony, be good. That's awesome. Tony, be good from Scotland. What are George Benson common lines? That's another one of those huge questions, man. Man, if I could play like George Benson, I would, you guys. I've got a lesson on that too, though, where I sat down and really kind of thought about all the Benson licks that I've learned. And I think I just called it Benson licks, something really very unclever. Hey, though, for real, there's a great solo on there's a Jimmy Smith record called Off the Top. I don't know if you must have checked it out, because it's really, really some of George's best playing for Straight Ahead. And there's a tune on there called Mimosa that George wrote, and there's some of the best, his best blues playing, soulful, just melodic stuff. It's really breathtakingly good, man. It really is. Plus, just a great tune. I'm reading onto our blues comment too about Hal Galper. That sounds great, man. I mean, we all found our way somehow. All I can tell you is what worked for me. I've been learning Pat Martino's Cisco recently. Do you have any tips for incorporating licks into ones I'm playing? I do, and I do have a lesson on that specific too. It sounds like I have done everything at this point. But anyway, I've got a really good lesson on that, by the way, on the website where I took Pat Martino's Cisco. I think I do have some good tips for incorporating licks, because I think that's an important part of it. If you're working on, let's say you're working on a 2-5-1 in F major, and you've got, and that's your lick. The first thing I would do is just do what I'm doing right now, is just get it until it's, you have it together, muscle memory. In other words, you can execute it always. Over and over and over again. Then I would take whatever note I started on, which is A, I should say whatever finger, and move it to the next A on another string. So then to the next string, and another one. So in learning all the places where the shape felt good initially, hopefully that was clear. I did it a little fast, but anyway. So that's the first step, just learning all over the neck. Then associate the line with chord forms. So that would be. Then where was the next one? So put chord forms that you would normally use when comping. Don't just utilize, some generic dominant chord or minor 7 chord that you never actually play. You want to associate with stuff you play. So if I remembered that it was under this shape, when I have my hand here or here, you know, I've got it ready to go. Same thing with this one. It's under this chord. So that's how you get it together on an instrument. But the very next thing you need to do is put it in tunes, you know? So take a tune that has a 2/5, which should be very hard to find, and every time that chord progression comes around, just plug it in. I know this sounds really kind of anti-improvisation, but I think of it as preparation, you know? So every time that chord progression comes around, hit it, and so you never miss. And you'll find yourself that will take on a life of its own, and it won't sound so contrived anymore. Another thing that is really helpful too is if you did try taking that lick and just modifying it a little bit, like and just try to create more out of it, and then it becomes yours, and it's no longer that Charlie Parker lick that you had just ripped off of a recording. But it's a process, like all this stuff, man. None of it is easy. It requires a lot of time spent. But if you set up your practice where your expectations are reasonable on a daily basis, you'll work, man. You'll work, and you just continue to work, and you'll continue to see progress. But if I were working on blues, I might not even touch the rest of the tune, you know? If I were working on F blues, I was just working on that lick, I just might play blues scale the whole way through. And play that lick. Here's another example. 3, 4. Like that. Just play it every time you have the opportunity to, when you have that chord progression come your way. That's what works for me. I know it sounds really contrived and an unartistic way of going about this, but man, I'll tell you what sold it for me is that, when I was transcribing a lot back when I was at the Berklee College of Music in the early 80s, I was transcribing tons of Charlie Parker, tons of John Coltrane, because to me those two guys were the source of everybody, It seems like everybody was getting their language from those guys. There was so much repetition in every one of their play. You saw the same lines again and again and again. Sometimes the same lines in the same solo. And it made it very clear to me that these guys just sat and practiced, lines. And if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. I don't know if you guys can hear the banging that's going around. My apartment has had construction going on it for like almost 9 months now. It's really been a drag. Rafa, finger classical style. Well, keep on doing it, man. Keep on doing it, Rafa. You don't have to be like somebody else. I wouldn't let that get me down. As a matter of fact, there's probably a lot of advantages to that. And the Pat Martino Linear Expression book that Rafa is mentioning is a great book. I spent a lot of time with that one. My most important question, how to solo over non-functional 60s tunes, man. I mean, it's just like anything. It's just like a different dialect. In other words, because they don't have any 2/5s anymore. So all that 2/5 stuff that you spend practicing becomes useless. It becomes much more of a modal thing. So you really have to learn how to get from color to color, essentially. So if I give you a random example, like if I were playing A flat major 7 sharp 5, for instance, I would treat that with F melodic minor. Right? And let's say it was going to C sus. I would treat that with G minor. But it's the getting to and from that's so important. Like, so here's A flat major 7 flat 5. A flat major 7 sharp 5. And I said I would play F melodic minor. So I might be playing. So it's just the key to it is to be able to be expressive in one mode and be able to, by step or half step, in my opinion, get to the next particular sound. I think that's one of the harder things when you're practicing a lot of 2-5-1 stuff, because all those lines are designed to resolve, you know. And in the type of tune you're talking about, Antar Blue, you can't utilize those. So, like I said, you have to be able to get comfortable just being able to improvise within a mode. Yeah, like Short as Infinize. I've heard it. It's such a beautiful, beautiful ballad, and I have played it on gigs. But I would have to read it, and I don't want to jump on the internet just to find a lead sheet right now. Let's see. I almost feel like doing it. So Infant Eyes. Let me just get up a different. Let's see. Man, the construction here just sucks. Infant Eyes. Lead sheet. Let me just at least get the first couple of chords, you know. So I'm just on Google right now, just looking for a lead sheet for this. All right, so we have. What a beautiful tune, man. All right, so let's just do that much. So you have G minor, right? Just Dorian. F Dorian. E flat major. I would still treat that with the same scale, like E flat major and F Dorian are the same. And I just know from the recording that they play 13 flat 9. And that's diminished. And that's a good spot to talk about what I'm trying to say to you. If you're playing E flat major and you're in here, and you got to switch to this, you just have to make that adjustment via steps. So if I was playing E flat major into the diminished sound, like that, you know. So you just treat it really lyrically, and get comfortable with each particular mode of each particular chord. And the last thing I'll say, you know, like I said, I've heard this tune so many times. Actually, I'm thinking maybe I should do a lesson on this one too. Is that the melody is so lyrical and beautiful. Just use that as a template, you know, for your soloing. Guys, I hope that beeping and stuff is not bugging you guys. It's bugging me. Let's see. C. Keaton. Barry, thank you for your time. Do you see more value practicing to loops like Drum Genius, Metronome? Do you recommend both? You're not spamming me, man. I personally like Drum Genius, but if you're just getting it together, I think being able to get comfortable with hearing a metronome on 2 and 4 is really, really important. And I wouldn't skimp on that. But once you feel comfortable with that, I would definitely move on to Drum Genius. Yeah, John Browning, the idea of pure improv held me back my playing for a long time. Man, I don't know. I mean, obviously that's your experience. Look, like I said, maybe I didn't say this, but you know, when you're learning about chord scales like we're talking about now, and you know, I've made a big deal about listening to recordings, learning the solos by ear, playing along with the recording, etc., etc. Ultimately, if you're spending too much time in your room, you know, just practicing by yourself on these isolated ideas, it's gonna be very, very difficult for you to become expressive, especially on a bandstand when all of a sudden you have musicians around you. And I found the best way to get close to that is to, as soon as you have a concept together, is apply it to a tune. Like Infinize is a great example. Just sit with Infinize and just maybe during the course of a day work on maybe 1 or 2 chord transitions. Not even the whole tune, just going from G minor to F minor. Can you connect those? So G minor. trying to connect those two sounds, you know? Once, just small steps, man. And over time, it adds up to a lot. Windows. Okay, I'll do Windows. And I do bluesette. Thank you, Machado from Brazil. I'm glad those lessons are helping you out a lot. Antar Blue is the same thing. You're making this much harder than it is. It's I don't necessarily think of ESP as a non-functional tune. You know, that's to me, that's like it's a resolution. It's just right. That's just F minor to F major. It's really it's not that it's easy, but I think you're making more out of the fact that this labeling you're giving it of non-functional. Just because it doesn't follow like 2-5-1 and have a central tonality, to me, I don't know, maybe the definition for me is just different than you're thinking about. But within that tune of ESP, there's all this movement that is completely functional. It just doesn't belong to one whole tonal center. But, you know, I could very, very readily see where the connections are from chord to chord. And that's what you have to work on. Oh yeah, tell the guy to beep in time. I know it's crazy too, it's just an E. It's all day long, man. So sometimes I'm sitting here just trying to harmonize the beeping. All right, I'm gonna go over to Ableton Live and set up a 3/4 tempo, meter here. So for Windows, and a tempo, so. But you guys do hear the beeping, I'm sure. So that's about 180. Just round it up to 180 and get a 3/4 groove. This is from Drum Genius too. You know, as you guys know, I've imported these loops into Ableton Live. But apparently this is the transcription from the Chicory record with Roy Haynes. All right, actually let me go through this. It's been a while since I played it. Chicory, Windows, I'll do the comping first. Let me do that again. Let me just do better. 2. See this. I have to show you this. I don't know if you guys can see out the window, but there's workers outside the window just peeling tape and crap off. Oh my god. I'm sorry about that. I definitely was distracted, but it's hysterical. I guess you guys can't see because of the glare. Well, it's funny. All right, let me get back to YouTube. I'm sorry about that last performance. Let's see. Jazz Telly. I just remember seeing your name somewhere, like we talked online and other, maybe, I forget. Thank you, Dominique. Merci beaucoup. Thank you for the compliments. I appreciate it very, very much. Well, anyway, you guys, I can hang for a little bit. If you have any other questions about stuff, I'd be happy to answer if I can. Let's see. Tortog. Would you say as the tempo increases, you change how you view the changes? No, I don't. Maybe some other people do. I just consider it like a challenge, that's all. I'm thinking of so many tunes in my head right now. Obviously tunes like Rhythm Changes that are generally played very, very fast. Cherokee. Regardless of the tempo, I'm really trying to hit every single one of them in the same manner I would if it was a little bit slower. So no, that doesn't affect the way I approach these tunes. Danny West, 251 licks, please. Sounds good to me. We should put a billboard, make a billboard of that. Danny, there are zillions and zillions of 251 licks you can find on the internet. And I don't think it'll really serve anybody if I just sat here and played a bunch of 251. licks. I'm not trying to sound mean because I'm not a mean guy. Here's one. Sorry. Man. Anyway, a little off, I guess. Hey, Daniel is writing, it's amazing the fat tone you're getting from a semi-hollow. If I remember well, it used to sound brighter in your first vids. Yeah, I'm using, on my audio setup here, I've got a Fender Twin emulation going right now by Softtube, which is really, really great. I'm trying to call it up right now. And I had the bright switch. I know how the Fender Twins had a bright switch on them, or do have. So I had it on. If I click it on, it's much thinner when I take it off. So I should never have that button flipped on, because I noticed the same thing too when I was listening back to some of the lessons. I thought, man, the top part has got kind of a a biting sound to it that I really wasn't loving. So I think that was a problem. I had switched the bright switch on that emulation. And this is pretty much, the guitar is pretty much wide open here. So that's the tone all the way. This is about, I don't know, quarter of a turn. Like it about there. Enter Blue, keep asking the same questions. I'm doing the same thing I've just explained to you. Each chord scale, each chord has a particular chord scale, and over all the years I've acquired tons and tons of language on all those particular sounds in all positions on the guitar. Fast forward, 30 years, man. This just didn't happen yesterday. So yeah, going from B minor is B Dorian, going to G sharp minor 7/5 is like B melodic minor. C sharp altered is D minor. F sharp minor is F sharp Dorian. D sus is A Dorian. You've got to be able to have all of that totally together. But I'm not approaching those scales I just rattled off to you as scales. I'm not playing B Dorian. I'm playing some B Dorian kind of scale stuff. I'm playing. These are all lines that I've acquired over the years. The next chord is G sharp minor 7/5. I like the sound of B melodic on that. But I'm not playing. Took an opportunity to practice there for a second. That's it. It's just connecting all those particular sounds together. They're all overlap all over the instrument. But as I said, it's a tremendous amount of time spent. At one point I was practicing 8 to 10 hours a day, and then playing gigs, and it's just for a good 3 or 4 years like that. Now I practice maybe 45 minutes a day if I get to that. So it just takes a lot of time and effort, But that's the method. Again, we're getting the same questions, which I think is what really kind of makes it difficult for people. Because I do believe you guys are approaching it. The people that are asking me these questions, you're approaching it the wrong way. I'm just going to flat out say it. So like for instance, Osborne Burnett, which by the way is an awesome name. Where can I learn runs and licks on the jazz guitar? And it's all the answers are on the recordings, man. Just pick a nice, easy Wes Montgomery solo where Greene is a great person to start with, man. His stuff is super accessible, and just learn the recordings using your ear. Play along with the recordings every single day, and then in 6 months, you'll be a whole other guitar player. Promise. You could spend 6 months. We should try an experiment. One of you guys take 6 months and practice theory all day long. The other person just play along with the recordings. I guarantee you, I would much rather hear the person who played along with the recordings. Then, you can just, verify everything and support everything you've learned via the theory and stuff. But that cannot be the way you go into this. No, John Browning, did I ever learn it from the audiobook? No, I learned it from the recording. It's an insanely difficult head to play, man. I couldn't even play it for you right now. But no, I did not learn it from the Omnibook. As a person that writes a lot of books too, I'll often tell people to put the books away. We talked about Pat Martino's Linear Expressions. It's a great, great book. Also, Joe Pass Guitar Style was another super helpful book for me. But when it came to playing music, I just copied stuff from the records and absorbed it. And then now I play in a way that I hope is a reflection of that, but not a copy of that, Marco, hey Barry, I have difficulty putting chords during a single line solo, not to the... yeah, I do, Marco. I understand your question about putting in a chord in a single line thing. I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, but if you listen to the piano players, like we listen to Wynton Kelly, listen to Herbie Hancock, listen to Chick, where they do it, that's where you do it. So anything that I would demonstrate for you right now, which I will, is based on the fact that I have all that in my head from all the listening that I've done. There's no real practical method other than, well, certainly it's going to reflect what you're playing linearly, because your comping is supposed to complement what you're playing linearly, obviously. But man, the answers are all in the recording. So if I were just playing, blues. So any of that, that was, I give myself like a B for that performance there, but I'm not thinking about any of what your question is asking. It becomes very, very intuitive, again, just based on recordings, So I know I sound like, I've been saying the same thing over and over again, but I really do believe that that's where a lot of us go wrong. Because there's so much information out there, man. So many books, so many videos, so many everything. Where, maybe the best way to say this is think about, guys like Charlie Parker, Coleman Hawkins, Lester Young. Go back even further. Those guys that had no access to any of the kind of stuff that we have at our fingertips. Like for me to go up and bring up infant eyes, like in 10 seconds, So they learn the way that I think that we should still learn is just by listening, playing, and then really that's pretty much it. Woo! Antar Blue, I've been playing for 50 years. I know all the modes, all the Indian ones. Okay, great players say don't use chord scales. Well, I don't know if I'm a great player, but I definitely use chord scales. It's just I don't use them as a scale. It's just a series of notes that I need to be creative within. But I think that I would find that kind of hard to believe what you're saying, because all the great players that I know, we definitely are dealing with chord scales. Antar, I don't know any of these people, I've heard none of these kind of quotes. I never heard such a thing. You know, and I've been in jazz education for like, man, you know, for 30 years. You know, I've never heard that expressed before ever. And and honestly, like, if you take one of the most brilliant improvisers of all time, John Coltrane, I mean, he was an avid studier of that Slaminski book, the book of scales. I think it's called the Thesaurus of Scales or something like that. I've never heard my colleagues or fellow musicians ever say anything like that. And Brewitt is asking, do you minorize? Oh, minorize, I get it. Scales like Martino. I definitely have an understanding of what Pat Martino does, where he reduces things to minor. So in some cases it works brilliantly. One of my favorite cases is a minor 7 flat 5 chords. I use that like crazy. So if I were playing D minor 7 flat 5, I would think of the third of that chord and play F minor. That's one that just works just fantastic. So I currently practice 10 hours daily. I'm 68 years old. Well, I'm catching up to you, man. I'll be 57, but here's what I recommend. Instead of practicing 10 hours daily, practice 5 and go play with some people for the other 5, you know? Or practice, 5 and learn recordings off of, solos off of recordings for 5 hours. Yeah, but the thing is, Antar, I feel like this is you and me now. You're saying I have 5 notebooks of transcriptions, can't play them, I just mine them for nuggets, but that is not the way you should utilize that material. That's the thing, you know. First of all, I hope it's you that did the transcriptions, but I wouldn't move on to another transcription until I could play that along with the recording, note for note, flawlessly, and I started, as you say, mining them for nuggets. I would do that once the transcription is complete, you know, and get that into your playing. Because after that, basically all you've done now is written a bunch of books. You should publish those things, by the way. And it's not helping your playing as much as you think it could, you know. Rafa, that was super nice of you, man. I don't even know how that's happening, but thank you for that. That was super, super nice. Let's see. I have been listening a lot to Roland Prince. I don't know that person. I have to look him up, though. Roland Prince. Let me shut these notifications off. Okay. Roland Prince. Yeah, I don't know that. I have to check him out. Danny West, How to Nail the Swing Feel. It's almost like you guys are setting me up here. How do you nail the swing feel? You play along with people who have great time, man. Wes, Coltrane, Charlie Parker, Cannonball Adderley. Play along with those guys. That's how you do it. There you go. Antar, you got that one right. Parker learned from Lester Young records. Exactly right. And we need to be doing the same thing, you guys. That's it. I mean, like I said, you know, I mean, I've got like hundreds of hours, I think, of video up on the internet by now, you know, and if not more. And yeah, we talk about all this chord scale relationship stuff, but the thing that I have to say to you is it should not necessarily be a means of improvising. It's a means of understanding why everything works. And it can really help you, too, in the areas of composition and just how chord progressions work and all these kind of things. But if you just said to me, hey, Barry, on G7, you could play G Mixolydian, I would do, without any kind of reference point, how am I going to turn that into? It's all Mixolydian. There's some chromatic approach notes, of course, things like that. But man, that comes from, you know, again, listening to the recordings. You know, we've given that stuff kind of names like chromatic approach, passing tone, enclosure, all the different names we've given stuff that probably the guys that learn how to do this, go back to Louis Armstrong. He was playing a bunch of chromatic approach note stuff too. I don't think he, you know, did it in a collegiate kind of way or an academic kind of way. The guy just played music, you know, just purely brilliant. And we're sitting there like dorks, you know, analyzing it, you know, over and over and over again and giving names to these kind of things. You know, it's a much more organic process. I really, really believe, and yes, you should balance it with scales, chords, theory. Yes. But man, if you want to learn how to be a jazz player, listen to some jazz records. If you want to learn how to be a rock player, listen to rock records. You know, I'm not trying to be an ass here, but when I was learning to play rock when I was in the 70s, man, I used to just lift Jimmy Page solos. You know, it was the same process. Okay. Well, Antar, man, you sounded like you're a little frustrated, so I'm just trying to help you. If you're getting the results you need, then everything is good. How is it you get the same great sound of that semi-hollow as you do your arch top? Well, I am playing through the same amp settings, and I'm using pretty much the same string gauge. Like on the arch top, I have 13s. There are 12s on here. It's definitely a different sound, though. It's much more of an electric sound, and I'm really beginning to love it. I've been taking it out to gigs much more because I can play it a lot louder, and I also like the fact that it has such sustain. It's incredible. It's still ringing. You know, on the arch top, the sound dies very, very quickly, and I'm really enjoying, especially playing trio. It sustains almost like really in a pianistic way, which I cannot do on my arch top. I keep on looking because that's where my other guitars are over there, just to the right of me. Antar Blue, you're kidding me, right? What mode is Charlie Parker using in bebop? Man, he's just outlining the chord changes, man. On dominant chords, mainly it was like, you know, harmonic minor and diminished, because that was the material that he drew from. But it's not one mode. It's chord by chord by chord, you know? John Browning, I'm not sure what you're laughing at right now, but wish you let me in on it. Yeah, Rafa, it's true. One thing that you learn is the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. I know, it's definitely true. You guys have a request? Another tune? Yeah, well, I mean, again, Antar, I really appreciate, by the way, all your questions, even though, you know, I've kind of been, you know, busting your chops a little bit. I really do appreciate every one of them. I think learning the solos from beginning to end is really important, especially from masters like Wes, because they were so good at orchestrating these in a storytelling fashion, man, beginning, middle, end, and just take these little pieces of licks doesn't give you that information, which is why I'm such a strong advocate of learning something from the beginning to end, be able to play it with the recording as you couldn't hear the difference between the two of you playing. And then, as somebody else put it, you know, go mining for nuggets of lines that you may want to incorporate in your playing. But the first part of that, I hugely advocate. Dan Edgecombe is asking me the same kind of question. Do you find yourself ever thinking of minor over dominant 7 chords? I do in diatonic dominant chords. Like I'll think about D minor on a G7 chord. But like on a G altered chord, I'll think A flat melodic minor, where at least Pat says in all his written materials that he's thinking about Dorian. But I much rather go to the melodic minor sound myself. Moon River. I don't really know that. I was kind of earing my way through that. I thought maybe I'd be okay. You guys are picking some hard tunes, man, for me to try to play. I deserve it too. Aubrey. Man, Aubrey, you guys, is a young guitar player who lives in the Jacksonville area, and he I think is only 20 or so years old. He's playing unbelievably well. Trying to get him into UNF this semester. He applied a little late, so I'll have to give him some help for that, and has got some stuff that he has to deal with as far as paperwork. But man, we're hoping that he comes to UNF. A brilliant young guitar player, Aubrey. So make sure people hear you, man. Get your stuff out there on YouTube. But from a young person's mind, you know, he's saying people think about jazz too much. If they don't have the feeling, they're never going to understand jazz. Yeah, I think that feeling. I don't know. I mean, I've had situations with students where they came in and didn't have a good time feel, and I really wasn't able to do anything about it. And other students who, you know, took to it immediately and were able to feel the music. I don't know if it's something that it can be learned, or I mean, obviously it can be learned. I've seen it happen, but I have seen people struggle with that, and that's such an important component of being a good jazz player. But if you guys find a few minutes, see if you can find Aubrey online. He's a really, really tremendous young guitar player. I'm looking at all these tunes from you guys. Yeah, John Browning. It's chemistry here. Yeah, Mike Miller also killing. Mike Miller is killing. Yeah, Rafa, for sure, man. If you're thinking about getting a Benedetto, definitely when you talk to either Howard Paul or Jackson Evans, be sure to mention my name. I'm sure they would do something. Probably charge you double. No, for real, man. Definitely mention my name. Yeah, I see. You guys, I'm reading this thing. Antar is saying that my future podcast buddy here. Pat Martino apologized for giving the impression he was basing linear expressions on scales. I mean, if that is true, because some of the things you've said today I've disagreed with, but if that is true, it just makes more the point that I'm trying to say here is that, you know, Pat just talks about reducing things to minor, but when you look through that linear expressions book, not once do you ever see a minor scale played like that. It always has chromatic pitches and, you know, things that are non-diatonic. But I think that we've pretty much exhausted that conversation. Yeah. You know, the thing is here, I can't stop it. Antar is saying if there are any scales in those linear expressions, they're melodic, minor, and bebop scale fragments. You know, again, I hear what you're saying, and I'm not going to disagree with you on this one. But I will tell you this, that I was listening to some Greene the other day from a record that I guess I just hadn't heard from. I've got one of those streaming things like Pandora or whatever. And man, I could tell that Pat Martino must have sat with that recording for years, because I mean, you can hear all the beginnings of some of Pat's like classic lines from Greene. Like, he may say that he spent a lot of time listening to Wes, and I'm sure he did. How could you not? But I hear much more of a Greene influence in his playing than anybody else that I've heard. Sometimes it's to the point where I was almost laughing with tears in my eyes, just out of joy, you know, because you can just try to imagine Pat Martino as a young boy sitting with those Greene recordings. I'm telling you, man, it sounded to me like, I don't know how close those guys would have been in age, by the way, but I'm just saying, after listening to that stuff, it was clearly obvious that Pat had listened to a lot of Grant. And I hear more of that in his playing than Wes. All right, let's do one more tune, and I'm going to say goodbye. So one more. I know you guys had made some great requests. A bunch of tunes I don't know, though, that well. A Parker tune. Let's see. That's called Chi Chi. It's an A-flat blues, and let's just do that. So let's get a tempo for that. So that's about 189. Let me just round that up and get a drum groove here. This Lewis Hayes one would be good for that. Okay, so let me go over that head one more. It's a blues in A flat. All right, so let's just do that one. We should be good. Nope, I'm in 3/4 still. That'll mess things up for sure. All right. right, that's it for me. I've got to go. Thank you guys for being here, and I'll see you again soon, I hope. So take care, and thank you for everything. Bye. I can't stop.